Halloween forever.
Already got one for you.
Mm-hmm.
So there's this horse, okay? And this horse lives on a farm, small town, has always enjoyed his time on the farm, but wanted to become a rock star. You know, wanted to play in a band, wanted to play in a rock and roll band, okay? So this horse, this small town horse, doesn't really play any instruments, but has a pretty good voice, good stage presence, right? Fancies himself a David Lee Roth kind of horse, okay?
Okay.
So the horse says, I got to go find myself a band, right? So thinking about who he knows around the farm, he says, first of all, we need a badass guitarist. And I don't play the guitar, but I know there's this chicken that is sick at the guitar. Don't know this chicken at all, but what's the worst thing can happen? I'm going to go ask. So goes over to the chicken coop, says, hey, chickens, you know that one chicken that's really good at the guitar, right?
Okay.
And they say, yeah, he's over there, right? Go talk to him. So he goes, hey, I'm trying to start this band, gives him the whole spiel. He says, all right, we'll give it a try, but I want half of everything we make. If we get big, if we sell albums, if we tour, I want half of everything we make as a band. He says, of course, whatever you need, right? We need you in this band. Okay, fine, deal. He says, all right, now I need a drummer. That's going to be easy. My buddy, the cow, already a great drummer. He's in. I know he's in, right? So he texts him, said, we got a guitarist now. We just need to find a bass player, which is tough because not a lot of farm animals play the bass. I don't know if you know this. But he puts up a poster, and this sheep replies to his poster, says, I have a bass. I dabble. They said, all right, that's good enough. We're good. We're going to start a band. So they get together. They rehearse a few times. It's going pretty well. They book a couple of gigs. The gigs go pretty well. They decide to do an album. The album actually starts to sell really well. It gets picked up by a farm music publication, and then it all of a sudden they're a big band amongst the farm animal community. They get invited to go perform on a late night talk show, right, as the musical guest. I said, this is amazing. The horse decides, I'm going to fly out early. I'm going to scope out where we're going to stay, where we're going to rehearse. We're going to move to Los Angeles, right? When we go out there to do this show. Horse flies out there. Couple days later, he's sitting there, in his hotel, sees the news. The plane that his band members were on crashed, and there were no survivors. His entire band died. He's super bummed. His band members are dead. His dreams are dead. His friends obviously have perished. He's super upset. He's so depressed. He stumbles, down the street, ends up stumbling into a bar, walks up to the bar. He's crying. He's emotional. He needs some support, something, right? And the bartender walks up to him and says, why the long face? Welcome, boys and girls, to fucking another Minisode of Halloween is Forever. I'm Brian.
I'm Steve.
How'd you feel about that, Steve? Is that all right? You like that one?
Boy, that's terrible. Everybody's gonna hate that one.
You just don't like sometimes the trip is just as fun as the destination, Steve.
Yeah.
That's the lesson that I wanted to teach you and our audience during that joke.
I'll admit that I didn't suspect it until after everybody was dead. But up to that point, it was kind of like, oh, well, where is this going? Like, maybe there's something happening with the chicken and the half. The chicken taking half. No, nothing really happens with that.
That's called world building.
Yeah. I was like, oh, wait, maybe there's some sort of like chicken and drumstick joke that's going to happen. I don't know. Maybe. Nope.
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 Nope, sir. No, sir.
Just a meandering thing that happened to mention a late night talk show and, wasted everybody's time. So great.
Listen, guys, if you are listening to this podcast and you are worried about wasting time, you are listening to the wrong podcast. Boop, boop. Because this is the fucking biggest waste of time in the world, guys. We're going to talk about movies that you've already saw or aren't going to see and just want to hear about. But we got a little mini-sode here, guys. We finally watched the film that's taken the horror world by storm. I don't know if that's accurate, but a lot of people are talking about it. We watch and are going to talk about Late Night with the Devil from the year of our Lord 2023. Just came out, still in theaters. I think 2023 because it hit like the festival circuit last year and all that stuff, but actually got a theatrical release this year. It's still in theaters, but it also hit Shudder yesterday. We're recording this on 420, bro. Hey, blaze it up. We're recording this on 420. It's going to come out in a couple days. It just came out on Friday, which was the 19th on Shudder. That's when I watched it. Did you ever get to the theater, Steve, to watch this, or did you watch it on Shudder too?
So I actually didn't get to the theaters to watch this because that whole AI controversy came out about it.
I heard that as well. And I think I know I'm going to delve into it. You might know more about it than me, but yeah, that was a little bit of a disappointing thing.
Yeah. That kind of bummed
that we heard.
Yeah. That bummed me out. And I was like, I don't know that I'm gonna like, I just didn't feel like I was going to pursue it to go to the theater for it. My rationalization for doing it on the show, because usually, if there's something I just really, really don't like, I'll just completely avoid it. But I mean, doing it for the show, it's on Shudder. I'm already subscribed to Shudder, and we can actually just talk about, now that I've seen it and the implementation of the AI, we can also just talk about it. But yeah, I'm still not a big fan that they did it, because this was a pretty decent movie overall.
Yeah.
And they had like a lot of attention to detail. And then the AI stuff is so glaring. Like,
it is. It's weird. It was a weird decision. I have a feeling when they were putting this movie together, it was so new that they didn't anticipate the backlash, and they just thought it was a cool thing that they were doing or something. Like, I don't know. Anyway, we'll get into it. We got a couple other things to do at the top of the son of a bitchin' show. First here, Steve, I see you sipping on a beer, sipping on a brewski over there. What do you got?
So last week I was on the real abjuration bullshit, drinking some blue ass milk stuff. I'm still on abjuration, but it's less bullshit, and you'll probably still not be happy, but whatever. I don't care. It's not for you. It's not for you.
I don't have to drink it.
But this is their candied sour series rather than their ice cream sour.
Oh, yeah, you're right. That's hardly at all bullshit.
It's less. It's less after I explain it.
Yeah. Okay.
But this is their version 1.33. And this is a sour ale with passion fruit, orange, and lime as slushies. So it's meant to mimic the hurricane slushies that you get down in NOLA that are out of the fucking machine and out of the drive-thrus and shit like that.
Yeah. The big walls of goddamn machines and shit.
Yeah, it's meant to mimic that stuff.
Okay.
But
that doesn't sound too bad. I like all them flavies.
Yeah, it's not too bad. I'm realizing as I drink it, it's been like actually 10 years since I've had a proper hurricane. Not even just like the slushy one, but like a proper one. And I don't remember it tasting like this. So like I can be completely off and wrong, but like, yeah, because this is a 5.6 beer and it's not full of dark and, light rums and, all that shit. It's going to taste different, but like, it's still pretty fruity. It's just like it's like tart fruits, passion fruit and orange. Yeah. It's not bad.
Yeah. Yeah. Listen, I could probably fuck with that. And I did get to spend a little bit of time with the Abjuration guys, actually, when I was emceeing the Pittsburgh Brewers Guild during the end of Pittsburgh Craft Beer Week. Did that Brewers Olympics thing last week on Saturday down at Grist House, and it was fun. Yeah, it was fun. Good folks. Just because they don't brew my type of beer doesn't mean they don't make good beer. Although I haven't had a ton of their beer, but that one sounds pretty tasty. I'm going in a different direction here, Steve, for a couple of reasons. One, your boy drank about 8 or 10 beers last night while I was watching all these dang movies.
Yeah.
My wife was out gallivanting around town. I was just single dadding it at home, got the kids in bed, started watching some movies, had a few Pilsner Urquells. Actually, I stuck exclusively with Pilsner Urquell last night. I think I drank about 8 Pilsner Urquells. And then I'm going to Late Edition Brewing tonight, which is some friends of mine just opened up in, like, I guess it's like kind of the north side of Pittsburgh up that direction.
Okay. I was going to say, I'd never heard of that place before. I was like, where the fuck is that?
They just opened up. It's Malcolm. It's Brian Robbins, for those of you who are in the craft beer scene, Keith Cost, and who else? Gosh, I'm forgetting who else is involved. But some people have been brewing in the Pittsburgh scene for a long time, partnered up on a brewery up there. So I'm going to try some of their beers, and then I'm going to go see a band play tonight, and, going to be out and about. So I'm like, you know what? Had some beers last night. Going to have some beers tonight. I'm going to ease into this with just a little bit of Diet Dr. Pepper. But I did decide I'd put it in, listen, fan of the show, Brighton Hot Dog Shop cups do come up time and time again, and this is one of my favorites, guys. This is just from last year. I usually like to go for the old ones, right?
Yeah.
The vintage ones. Now, this is last year. This is the one they did, the Seinfeld cup. Have you seen this one, Steve?
I've seen it. I've seen it out there.
Yeah. They got all the how they don't get sued. No idea.
They're not big enough to get sued. They have to
right.
penetrate into a market that actually has lawyers that give a shit.
Yeah. This is the one where they have all the characters from Seinfeld. They of course have Elaine as a hot dog. She's doing her little dance. They got Jerry in the puffy shirt. He's also a hot dog. We've got Kramer smoking a cigar. Guys, he's a hot dog. We got George posing in his underwear as a hot dog, and of course the soup Nazi as a hot dog. And it says, "No soup for you. Only Brighton hot dogs," which I really do appreciate. Quote. So your boy's getting some caffeine in him right now, drinking some Dr. Pepper, which I have come to terms with the fact that although I love a squirt, everybody knows I love a squirt. Dr. Pepper, Diet Dr. Pepper is, I think, the most satanic of all sody pops. I don't know why. I just feel like the devil, if he was to drink a sody pop, he would drink Diet Dr. Pepper.
Not Moxie?
Nope. No, that tastes like shit.
Yeah.
The devil is not about
devil.
Stuff that... No, he doesn't want to have stuff that tastes like shit. He's like, don't cheat yourself out of a good time, right? Go out there and enjoy something that tastes really good. I would say probably Satan is probably into just regular Dr. Pepper. I don't think he's going to deprive himself of the sugar and use that artificial shit.
Right.
But maybe there's something under the surface that whatever the artificial sweetener is, it's probably giving us cancer. So I feel like he probably thinks that's funny. Anyway, guys, let me remind you, we have picked our showdown topic for the fantastic month of, what is it? April. May is the one coming up next, guys. We have our space horror showdown coming up in May. Steve, do you have anything to tell us about, do we know who our guest is? Are we going to talk about movies yet? I know we have an extra Monday in the month of April. So what are we going to, what's the plan here?
So I think because we have the extra Monday, we'll hold off on the reveal of the movies, but I'll tell everybody who our guest is going to be.
Yeah.
Our guest is going to be another Brian. So it's going to be going to be a double Brian episode. And
you're going to be in a fucking Brian sandwich.
Yeah, but I know this. I've known this Brian as well. So maybe I can sway him to my side. Because he comes from all the way across the other side of the state in that Philadelphia area. And we're
Philadelphia.
Yeah, we're bringing on Brian from the Drink a Beer and Play a Game podcast.
Brian from the Drink a Beer, Play a Game podcast. Yeah, maybe we'll get into talking about some fucking Vampire the Masquerade or some kind of sick board game stuff. Because is it mostly games like that, and forgive me, I'm familiar with the show, but I've not actually listened to it. Is this a video game situation?
It's far more video game
situation. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I've just been, for some reason, really diving down the rabbit hole of Vampire the Masquerade, the board game, recently.
Oh yeah.
Don't. I'm not saying I'm proud of it. I'm just saying that's where my head's been at lately for whatever reason.
I mean, it's a video game too. It's all of those properties.
Yeah.
So yeah,
that's true. Well, that'll be a lot of fun. We'll see what he knows about space horror. I've got a couple in my head. We're not going to reveal the picks yet, but I've got a couple in my head. My first pick, a dark horse. I'll tell you that right off the bat. I don't think you're going to pick it. I think I'm safe when it comes to my first pick. And then I've got a second pick that is a little bit more perhaps predictable.
Sure.
But remember, we have put up some meg rails. And what that means is we are not going to pick the singular most popular or objectively great movie that pertains to this topic. And in this instance, we have determined that to be Alien or Aliens, pretty much. If you want to do some other part of that franchise, I say more power to you.
Sure.
But we have kind of put up Alien and Aliens as off limits for our space horror episode. And we also have suggested, Steve, right, that it needs to take place in space, or perhaps a planet that's not the Earth, right?
Not the Earth.
Yeah, it can't just be like aliens came to the Earth,
right? Because that's too easy. That happens too often, and quite often you just don't even see anything that looks spacey. You know, maybe you get a ship if you're lucky, but a lot of times it's just a fucking comet that flies through the air and then crash lands, and then you get the alien from that.
Yeah, killer clowns, right? We did Killer Clowns from Outer Space last month. You could say it has a lot to do with space because they are dang old killer clown space aliens. But doesn't take place in space. Yeah. So we're gonna stick to stuff that takes place in space. I'm
basically like disqualifying Critters and Critters 2 because it's just the critters landing on the Earth, and then you get some space bounty hunters, but Critters 3, now that occurs.
Now we're talking.
Now I believe it's either 3's LA and 4 is space, but one of those two is one of the later sequels definitely occurs on the spaceship in the outer space.
I thought it was Critters 3. Am I getting them mixed up? I don't know.
Maybe.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's either 3 or 4.
As we've discussed. Yeah. All right. One more thing before we get into this son of a bitchin' movie. Actually, two more things. One, if you're not following us already on the social medias, fuck you. That's a mistake. You might as well not even be on the social medias because you're missing the best thing about it, which is Halloween is Forever on the Instagrams, on the Twitter/X's, on the fucking TikToks and the Facebooks and all that stuff. Go follow us. You can provide suggestions for minisodes, for showdown topics, just for fucking movies that you want us to watch, bro. That's always fun as well. We appreciate that. You also get to vote on topics when we throw them out there via our polls to decide which of the topics are going to be our showdown topics for the month. You can do all kind of cool stuff on there. We really appreciate it. And then if you really want to support the show in a big old way, you can do one of two other things. The easy one is go over to your fucking podcatcher app on your Spotify's or your Apple Podcast or whatever. Give us the maximum number of stars or hearts or whatever the fuck they have over there on them dang old websites. Give us the maximum amount, write a little thing. Say, hey, all right, these guys, pretty cool. And then if you want to, you can shoot me a DM. I'll send you some fucking Halloween is Forever stickers in the mail. And then if you're a real fan, you're a true fan of the podcast, you'll go over to patreon.com/Halloween is Forever. Steve, tell them what's waiting for them over there on that sumbitch.
You jump on the Patreon. We give you all kinds of stuff. You get reviews. You get the Discord where you can chat with everybody. Bingo. You can watch episodes happen live. You could have seen that sick ass New Brighton hot dog shop cup if you was here.
You could have,
but you ain't.
4K.
Yeah,
no,
but you ain't.
4K.
No, it's not 4K at all. Your bum ass connection needs a little work.
No. It sucks.
But yeah, you could see the cup in 360p. You could have got all of those pixels and blocks that look
Guys,
like it.
I need a half a can of WD-40 when I fire up this computer every time.
But yeah, you get all that. You can interact with us, and you get the monthly exclusive podcast, which for now, this month, is wrapping up Family is Forever.
Yeah, guys. This is our monthly Patreon exclusive podcast wherein Steve has made me watch every single one of the Fast and the Furious movies. It sucks. Watching them, that is, sucks. The podcast's a lot of fun. These movies are dog water. We all know this. Steve loves them. He's got bad taste. Yeah. I watch them. It hurts me. He likes it. It sucks. But we always talk about them and laugh our asses off, and it's a fun time. So go over and check that out. Now, the other interesting thing to consider, and Steve, I got a little bit of new news here.
Oh boy.
And I want to get your instinctual first take on this.
Yeah.
After this month, starting in May, we're going to have a little switching of positions here, right? Tables are going to turn a little bit, as they say, wherein your boy gets to determine what the topic of our next Patreon exclusive kind of podcast series is going to be. So we're going to move away from Family is Forever because we're going to be done with the fucking Fast franchise, which almost made me barf in my mouth just to say it. And I get to choose what we're going to watch. Now, here's a couple of things that I've been thinking about, right?
Mm-hmm.
We've been talking, and I've been leaning very much towards this idea of doing weird Christian propaganda horror movies, right-wing Christian propaganda, horror, thriller, sci-fi types of movies, which I still like that idea.
Yeah.
But I came up with another one that I thought would be interesting. And what I've really been, kind of stuck on, right, is I want something that hurts Steve, right, that he doesn't like, that bothers him, that introduces some degree of discomfort into his life, because that's what he's done to me through this whole Fast and the Furious bullshit. However, Steve has a higher tolerance for trash, as is evident by the fact that he likes the Fast and the Furious movies. So, I started thinking, right? I was actually mowing the grass, right? And I started to think, hey, what does Steve really love? What is his undying love for in the world of film? And how can I hurt him, by doing this? And then I got to thinking, it popped into my head all of a sudden as I was mowing the grass. I said, boy, Steve loves a RoboCop.
Yeah, Steve does love a RoboCop. He really does.
Yeah. Steve loves a RoboCop,
yeah.
Right? But you know what Steve doesn't love? All the other RoboCop movies that aren't RoboCop for the most part.
There's a bunch out there.
There are a lot of RoboCop other properties out there,
sure.
Right? We've got RoboCop 1. We've got RoboCop 2. We've got RoboCop 3. We've got a 2014 RoboCop that came out. We've got fucking all manner of weird RoboCop media that is still kind of kicking around out there that I think we could go down a path on. I'm not 100% set on this because I need to determine that there actually is enough RoboCop media out there to get, my fair share.
Yeah.
But it could be a shorter one, and then we could move into something else.
Yeah.
But I would like to start with one of Steve's favorite movies, which is RoboCop, and then slowly devolve into the trash that is the rest of the RoboCop franchise. So let me know what you think out there, folks, especially our patrons on the Patreon. Let us know. Let us know what you think about that. Does that sound fun? Do you want to go down the rabbit hole of Officer Murphy in the great city of Detroit and just see it? Because, guys, we've got at least 4 movies, as far as I know.
It's more.
Then we've got Okay. Then we've got a TV series, right? We have a TV series. We have an animated series.
Yeah.
I think we have multiple versions of an animated series. We could do a lot of damage with RoboCop. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Let's see. There's the 3 main films.
Right. That would be, of course, RoboCop 1987.
Yeah.
RoboCop 2, 1990, and RoboCop 3, 1993.
Yeah. And so 1 is good because it was directed by Paul Verhoeven.
Mm-hmm.
I forget who directs 2. Is 2 directed by Fred Decker?
2 is directed by Irvin Kershner.
Oh, okay. So then Decker directs 3. I thought he did 2 and 3, but no, he definitely directs 3.
No, he did direct 3. Yep.
And then so 2 I kind of like. It's all right. It has moments. 3 is abysmal. And then after that, there's 3 Canadian made films that were made only for like Canadian TV. The 2014 remake is where I'm really...
That's going to be a struggle one for you.
That's where I'm really not happy.
Yeah.
Because I
have not seen it.
I have this thing where if there's a movie that's a remake or a sequel that just is complete fucking dog shit that I want nothing to do with, I just don't watch it and I pretend it doesn't exist. And that way I'll just never ever be sullied by it and I'll never care. So for you to make me watch that is bad.
Yeah, that's why I like saying. This, and I like that you haven't. So we also have a RoboCop animated series, which is really meant for kids.
Yeah.
From '94, which is funny because the original RoboCop's one of the most violent movies ever.
Yeah,
made,
right.
I think. And then we get into RoboCop : Prime Directives from 2001, which I know nothing about.
That's the Canadian stuff.
That's the Canadian stuff. Okay, from the early 2000s. Those are the television stuff. And then we have, I'm sorry, RoboCop 1994. There's RoboCop, the one I'm thinking of, which is the animated series, came out in 1988, actually. And then we have one from 98 to 99, which I don't know anything about, which is also an animated series that is called RoboCop : Alpha Commando. So
I don't think I ever saw that one.
We'll see. We've got quite a variety here to talk about in terms of RoboCop media. So let me know what you think, because you boys got to figure it out pretty damn quick. All right. Should we get into this son of a bitch movie? I should say also, I watched 2 movies last night, this being one of them, and I watched a little double feature. And I think it makes sense to put the context of which I saw this movie. Steve, you tell me the context in which you saw it. I did watch it at home. I did watch it, in my basement kind of, movie, it's essentially my, sit and watch movies room. It's got the nice big TV and the couch and all the beers down there.
Yeah.
So I sit down there in the dark and watch movies by myself, which is a great spot to watch a movie. It's not the theater experience, but I'm plugged in, right? So that was I was hammering on some beers, but I came into this movie with pretty high expectations because I heard so many good things about it. And then throughout the day yesterday, just kind of scrolling on the social media, I'm noticing a lot of people are watching it for the first time because it's streaming on Shudder, and I'm seeing more mixed stuff. So my expectations went from really high because of all the good things I heard to kind of mid-range, right? And we'll see how that impacted the way I felt about the movie. And then, for a little bit of additional context, I, like I said, got drunk and then watched another movie after this, which is a movie I've been meaning to watch for a long time, which is Talk to Me.
Oh, yeah.
Which I first time watch, I finally got around to watching Talk to Me, which, spoiler alert, is way better than Late Night with the Devil, at least in my opinion.
Yeah.
So maybe a pale in
so.
comparison to that as well. So in any case, that was my context. Steve, where was your head at going into watching this movie?
Well, like I said, I was already kind of up against it because of the AI stuff. And I didn't really, tuck myself in or I just watched it this morning. Yeah, I watched it this morning. Yeah. It wasn't, the thing that I really wanted to watch it for is David Dastmalchian.
Same.
Everything that dude has done, or let me rephrase, every role I've seen him in has been fucking great.
Yes.
Even if the movie is doo-doo. Did you watch that new Boogeyman that came out?
The Stephen King adaptation?
Yeah.
No, I saw a trailer for it, but I have not watched it yet. I have trouble watching movies that I've already read the book or story about. I don't know why. It's not that it ruins it and doesn't even. We've talked about this when we talk about literary horror and stuff, but it's just it just takes the surprise out of it. It's like when I see a movie. That's why it took me so long to see Talk to Me. It's because I feel like I saw too many spoilers. Turns out I didn't.
No.
But then it just pushes it down the priority list for me. So no, I haven't watched it yet.
Yeah, no, I get you. If a movie isn't able to surprise you, that's why I do my best to not watch trailers at all. But that movie overall is pretty blah. I don't know. Okay. Some people might like it. I didn't care for it. But Dastmalchian's part in that movie is fucking really great. It's really affecting. Yeah. He basically plays the father. Since you know the short story, he plays the father that has his kids killed.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then he's talking. The movie is a continuation of the book in a way. So Dastmalchian is the father that's.
Well, it has to. If I recall, the story's only a handful of pages long. It's a short story.
Yeah. So Dastmalchian plays the father from the short story, and then he's telling the story to the kind of the new protagonist of the film, and he's like a therapist. So he's relaying the story of the boogeyman and how his kids died, and it's a pretty powerful scene. But then
that's the one that I feel like they spoiled that in the trailer.
Yeah,
because that's him talking. That's the trailer.
Yeah, so that's a pretty powerful scene. But then the monster is a CGI goobity-gop humanoid.
I knew that was going to be the case. Fuck that.
And you just go, I don't. Yeah. Blah.
Yeah, I don't care about all that. And also the thing is the monster in the story is very vague.
Right.
And shadow. It's like a shadow, basically.
Right.
I'm not spoiling a story that came out in the mid 80s or something.
That's already had adaptations.
Yeah. But the other thing about it is when you read these stories, especially these little really impactful short stories, are you picture the scene in your head because you tell yourself the story when you're reading it. And I was always pictured my old house in Milwaukee. We had this little bungalow in Milwaukee, and that's what I imagine. So I'm going to see the story and I'm like, yeah, that ain't my house. And it's going to change the way I remember the story in my head. I know that's stupid, but that's part of it as well. But yeah, the same, right? David Dastmalchian has been awesome in everything I've seen him in. He genuinely feels like a pretty spooky dude. I know he loves the devil.
Sure.
Because I saw him backstage with Twin Temple, and they were just hailing Satan and raising hell and praising Dale and all that stuff. So he just seems like a creepy, weird, cool guy, and also a great actor as well.
Yeah.
And doesn't hesitate to just get fucking weird, right?
Yeah.
With weird ass movies, but also he's in fucking Dune and shit, isn't he? I don't know.
I
didn't see the Dune movie.
I think he might be in Dune, but he's also in he's in the Suicide Squad, and he plays a character called Polka Dot Man, and it's a fantastically weird character. I think I know you're not a superhero guy, but I feel like you might like the Suicide Squad that was made by James Gunn. Is
that the one with John Cena in it?
Yeah, it's the one with John Cena.
Yeah, okay.
And Dastmalchian in it. So like,
yeah,
his role is so fucking bizarre, and I think you would like it. So yeah,
all right,
it's
maybe
body
I will.
horror.
Yeah,
It's straight up body horror is what it is. Yeah,
yeah. I like superheroes, but I don't like very many superhero movies.
Yeah.
But listen, the old Superman movies, like some of the old early X-Men movies, I fucking love them when they come out. Like, I'm not gonna front. And I'll watch literally any fucking thing with Batman in it. But I've always been I was a Batman kid.
Sure.
So I'll watch any fucking thing with Batman in it. But anyway, I will. I'll check it out. I'll put it on the list.
Yeah.
But yeah, so just to speaking of David Dastmalchian, he plays Jack Delroy, who we'll talk about their characters in a sec. He's kind of the star of the show. One of the other stars, Laura Gordon, plays Dr. June Ross Mitchell. Laura Gordon, what have I seen her in? Let me look it up because I just remember.
Best of luck, because I was
not Saw. Yeah, what have I seen her in? Because maybe I haven't seen her in something. Maybe she just looks like somebody or something.
I think she just looks like somebody, because like I've seen her in Saw, but like I don't recognize her. Everybody who isn't David in this film is like they've done stuff, but you're not going to recognize them. Even the one guy who has like he has a big role in this film, and he's been in a very big film. You're not going to recognize him because he looks completely different from his role. If you the guy who plays Carmichael Haig, his actor is Ann Bliss. He was in the Matrix films, and he played the character Bane, who was the real world guy who was possessed by Mr. Anderson.
Okay.
If you remember, it's at the end of Matrix Reloaded. Mr. Anderson comes into the real world and possesses a guy.
Okay. I only saw that one once. I've seen the first one 100 times, and then they drop off.
Sure enough. Yeah.
In the dumbest imaginable way. But, people you recognize weirdly or think you recognize, but not a lot of like the guy who plays Gus. I swear I knew him from something. I looked, I'm like, I don't think I saw him in anything. He might have just shown up and been uncredited in something too.
Yeah, this is literally his first feature credit. So it's hard. You think you've seen them, but I think they just all look like people you've seen. We've seen too many people.
Perhaps. Yeah, I've seen too many people. I will die on that hill. Too many people. Before we get into the plot and everything, let's touch base on the whole use of AI thing, which I know where it's used, but and I saw when the movie came out, there was some backlash, some articles and things came up and were circulated around social media shortly after the film's release, basically criticizing it, the filmmakers for using, which I didn't mention the director, but criticizing the filmmakers for using, AI as opposed to actually, using and paying real artists. But also I didn't mention this is written and directed by the Cairns Brothers. They are a writer-director brother duo. Certainly this Scare campaign from 2016, they're known for 100 Bloody Acres from 2012. And then this venture to say definitely their biggest hit to date. But yeah, so getting back to the use of AI thing. Let's talk about that.
Yeah. So it was first reported that it was only like 3 images that are kind of like the slides you see in between commercial breaks of the films, which
like the interstitial graphics for the TV station.
Yeah, so like they're on screen. They're very noticeable that they're just AI because they're so just like all AI images are fucking garbage looking. Like
they look the same. Like they have an AI look to them. Like AI is not at a place where you don't tell it's not AI. So like I get the feeling that when they're making this movie, let's say it's over a year ago, actually it probably would have been, close to 2 years ago at this point, right? They're probably putting this together, editing it and everything. This would have been quite a novelty at the time. And I do remember it lasted about a month where people couldn't tell things were AI or not. And then they're like, no, we got it. Now the media literacy caught up to immediately go, oh, now, yes, we can tell the weird uncanny valley nature of AI art. But I wonder if this, the decision to put this stuff in there happened in that very tight little window where everybody was like, this is still a cool novelty.
Right. I think that's kind of their explanation, was that, like, because it happened so early, and it's more than likely that they just didn't even know the way AI is generated and didn't understand that AI scrapes other artists' work to create art.
Yeah.
So like it takes, every piece of AI that's made is stealing from somebody in a little bit of a way. The other piece of AI art, even though they said it was only those 3 images, it's also, I think, the entire set.
Oh, really?
So yeah. So the logo for the night owls with the owl on the buildings, that for sure is.
Yeah, those images felt like it.
Yeah. Because it's supposed to be the New York City skyline, but it looks like shit. And like you can just look at the windows that are on the skyscraper buildings, and there's no rhyme or reason to their placement because AI is dumb. So it doesn't know that architecture is very specific. The other, but just looking at the set in general, that has like those brown lines over the blue links. I think all that blue link stuff is also AI generated, because I've done texture generation as well for projects, which I feel like that's my only thing that I think AI should be used for is texture generation.
Sure.
And maybe that's just because I've done it myself. Like that's my own personal thing. But like, I've generated textures to put on 3D models because I don't want to, I'm lazy. I don't want to find those textures. And a lot of the time I'm generating something that doesn't exist. Yeah. So like,
so it's not biting off it in the same way, or if it is taking from a bunch of different textures, it's taking from tons of different weird images and stuff like that, and then bringing it together for that texture. I didn't think about the texture thing. One thing I can say, just as like as a movie viewer, and it's probably going to cause the movie to not age particularly well, not from hey, maybe that was poor form to do it, but I think it already looks bad now.
Yeah.
Once we start to get AI that actually does things to a point where it is more difficult to determine whether it's AI or not, this is going to look like dog shit.
Yeah.
Which is fine. Whatever. I mean, there's lots of movies from only a handful of years ago that look like dog shit. But
yeah, there's plenty of movies that still like have like the worst CGI. That like that's always the comparison of like there's so much dog shit CGI out there because it's slapped together really quickly, and everybody's just like, but Jurassic Park was 30 years ago. Why doesn't it look like Jurassic Park? And it's like, oh, because you're not paying people enough money to make it look like Jurassic Park.
Yeah, it's the difference between fucking like Disney animators and the people who were paid 50 cents an hour to draw the G.I. Joe cartoons.
Right?
What I mean, like, it's very different.
Yeah, incredibly different.
So let's get into the story here a little bit. We had mentioned David Dastmalchian's character, Jack Delroy. So he is the host of a late night talk show. They kind of set up early on about 10 minutes of kind of explaining who he is and his kind of rise and fall, if you will. The whole thing is presented as this kind of documentary found footage type of thing, kind of a la Lake Mungo, I would say, where it's like an investigative report of an incident that happened. It just so happens that this incident happened on live TV. So it is this late night talk show, which we'll talk about the confusion around late night talk shows that obviously aren't filmed live. Like they aren't broadcast live.
Right.
Obviously they could do a live event kind of thing like this, but in any case, they're doing like breaks as if it's like Saturday Night Live or something like that, which is not how these shows typically work. In any case, this guy, Jack Delroy, he's like a local radio guy turned into this late night host, has like moderate success. He's always kind of been second. And we should say this happens initially in like the early 70s. So he's always kind of second to Johnny Carson. Right. And he wants to take that next step to be the kind of big dog late night host. But things start to drop off. Then his wife gets diagnosed with terminal cancer. She passes away. There's lots of speculation about his involvement in this kind of what they just call the Grove, which is very much alluding to like Bohemian Grove, even with like the big owl and all that stuff. So it's very much alluding to the real life meeting / organization / location of Bohemian Grove, which is a lot of speculation and conspiracy theories that this is like the retreat of the fucking Illuminati. So he's involved with this, so people are speculating about what that means for his career and all that sort of thing. In any case, he's kind of at a place where fall sweeps are approaching, and it's like do or die for the show. So he has decided he's going to do this big live Halloween special and show the world something they've never seen before. So that's kind of the setup, right? So this is now fast forward. This show is happening in 1977. So this is kind of a period thing, right? So all the graphics and everything we talked about, it's very, very mid-late 70s kind of look to it, which I don't know. A lot of it looks quite good. Yeah. Right. It definitely kind of gives you the vibe of, feel like you're at a Paul Lynde Halloween special or something like that. Yeah. For the most part.
They do a really good job of like setting the world and like kind of getting fashion and everything. Like everything that's supposed to be part of the 70s kind of looks like the 70s. There is definite inspiration from two figures of the 70s and of the talk shows in the 70s that I think they're like using as kind of their template. So I'm pretty sure Jack Delroy is meant to be Dick Cavett. And just like the way his set is set up also looks like the Dick Cavett show, where it's like Carson was a behind the desk guy, and he would bring his guests out and like, but he always had that looming, I'm the desk guy. I control everything.
Right. Yeah.
Where Dick Cavett was more about like, I'm going to just sit in the same recliner across from a guest and talk to them. And we're just kind of having like
it was a little more living roomy type of feel to the set.
Yeah. Yep. So that's what this feels like. It feels like they were trying to make Jack Delroy Dick Cavett. And the other side of that is this Carmichael Haig character that we'll get introduced to. And I'll talk more about when we get to him. But he is very much obviously inspired by James Randi.
Yep. AKA the Amazing Randi. So there's a lot of that in there, and there's a lot of like pulling in characters from the real world around this time frame, or not always around this time frame, where they actually even talk about what was the couple, that are ultimately a very fictitious version of them are in like The Conjuring. The two main.
It's what's his name? It's something in Lorraine.
The Warrens.
Yeah. Lorraine Warren and her husband, who I forget his name.
Yeah, I was going at Ed and Lorraine Warren. Jesus Christ. Yeah, I could not think of the names to save my life. In any case, yeah, they're alluded to in here. So again, there's a lot of people they're kind of calling back to.
Yeah, and also they make direct reference to Carson as well as a competitor, and they have like stock footage that shows Ted Bundy and what's his face, Charles Manson. So like it's all very much meant to set up to kind of confuse you to make and lend to the believability that this actually happened.
Yep. Yeah, and there was like basically he took a year off or an extended time. I don't know if they call it a year after his wife died. You know, he had her on when she was very sick, only like weeks before she passed away on the show. And there's like this kind of heart-wrenching scene with her, and they had this wonderful relationship, yada yada yada, all this stuff. So you're kind of feeling for him. He's coming back. Things are up in the air as to whether or not they are going to be renewed for another season. He's got to make a big splash here during sweep. So this is what we've been set up as. The Halloween episode kicks off, and right off the bat, you got live theremin performances. So I'm all horned up. I'm excited. Plus just random theremin facts are getting thrown out. So I'm excited for all things theremin. You get introduced to a guest, which this was like a very vague reference to a guest that actually had it like a real life quote unquote psychic who had an like on again off again battle, if you will, or rivalry with the amazing Randi in real life, which is the character we're about to introduce. Kind of came around with, I don't know his name off the top of my head, but I believe he was like, I want to say he's Ukrainian or something like that. I forget, but he was like,
see, I didn't take it as they were referencing Uri Geller with this character.
Uri Geller. Yeah. Well, Uri Geller didn't necessarily do the same type of act, but I took it as when he was, the kind of tall, swarthy, handsome kind of guy with a thick accent. Like I just thought that was perhaps a little bit of a reference to Uri Geller, but in this instance, the guest. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's kind of a reference to Uri Geller, and also just like again when they introduce Carmichael Hague, they go through all the people he debunks, and he includes a spoon bender in that, that's more definitely Uri Geller that they're.
Yes, he was very much into I can manipulate things with my mind.
Right.
Whereas this guy they have on the Christo, is the character. He's more of like a traditional, like fortune tellery type of thing. Like he can talk to the dead and all that.
Yeah, he does the what the fuck was the guy's name? Talking to the dead. He was big for like a while in the 2000s. Which is crazy that they let this John Edwards. They let that. They let that scumbag.
I immediately
exist.
said. I immediately said Long Island Medium.
Oh yeah, her too. That stupid.
She sucks.
A shitbird.
Her hair rules, but she sucks.
Yeah, but Christo, I think, is a reference to a scam that Randi played himself with his partner. And this was done in the late 80s. So it's anachronistic to what they're setting up, but it feels like just a reference. In the late 80s, Randi set up this character called Carlos. And what he did is he had his partner, Jose Alvarez, pretend to channel spirits. And he would channel the spirit Carlos. So that's why I feel, because there's Carlos Christo, that feels like, that's why I felt like more of a reference to that. But
could be.
Yeah. But it was a whole thing.
That makes sense.
It was a whole thing where like they did this whole setup and they like tried to fool the Australian media and then fuel the Australian people. And then they revealed it like a magic trick. And they said, "We got you. Ta-da. This shit isn't real. Yeah. Stop believing this, you fools."
Yeah. And maybe this is, because we're going to introduce to this character here in a second. But that is really the crux of what the amazing Randi was all about. Like he was a magician. I mean, he did everything from, those types of bits to sleight of hand to, he was an illusionist fortune teller, all this type of stuff. So this really skilled, quote unquote, magician. And then eventually he kind of found this niche where what he wanted to do was debunk, these people who were pushing this off as real and actually victimizing people as a result of it. Yeah. So the whole idea is he's like, yeah, I'm good at this stuff and it's all fake, but there are other people who are pretending it's real and actually like preying on people's emotions and insecurities and tragedies and all this stuff and scamming them right out of money, which still happens to this day, obviously, all over the place. And churches do that too. Anyway, so this is,
and that's also church,
but this and also church. But anyway, so the Amazing Randi started doing this thing where he basically said, I'm so knowledgeable about this stuff. Any of these people, anybody you bring in, a fortune teller, a magician, anyone who insists what they're doing is genuine. And if I can't prove what they're doing, or if you can prove the existence of the supernatural, essentially was like his standing bet, right? He'll give you, I forget, it was $10,000 or something like that. It was like a fairly large sum of money.
Yeah, it started at 10,000 and then like eventually increased to $1 million sometime in the 2000s because he had just been at it for so long, and he's like, $1 million. Anybody, I give you $1 million if you prove this shit is real.
Any amount of money, it doesn't matter, right? Because he knew that they weren't going to be able to do that. So that character we're going to get introduced here in a second, but I felt it important to kind of throw out there because we're just getting introduced to Christo, who is a guest on Jack's show. So first of all, he has this accent which you pick up pretty right off the bat. They're very much trying to communicate that this is kind of a fake accent to him. He keeps saying "see," right? So he keeps like speaking like this kind of Spanglish type of thing. Although his accent seems to be kind of going between like South America, like Paraguay, and like Iranian or something like that. It gets all over the place. And you pretty quickly realize that what's kind of a mixed thing, because you're like, oh, this he's like a charlatan of some sort. His accent seems fake. There's a guy in the audience that he's doing the whole fishing thing. Like, does somebody have somebody in there that's close to them that has passed away that their name starts with a C? And of course everyone does, you know what I mean? Or of course, in this, statistically, there's going to be tons of people in the audience that do. But he's kind of it's not going too well early on. There's a guy in the audience that's like doing bits and the whole 9 yards. And then eventually, which there is one guy that they keep showing who's just a creepy guy in a skeleton costume, because it's Halloween. So everyone in the audience, not everyone, a lot of people in the audience are dressed up in Halloween costumes. There's one creepy skeleton guy who won't talk and never moves or blinks or does anything. And I kept waiting for him to come back and do something wild, but he never did.
He's just there as, a specter of death, but also he just sits in the audience and behaves.
Yeah, he just sits there. There is eventually two ladies in the front row that, they talk about Eddie, which is like their son or brother who committed suicide or something. And he does connect with them and whatever. So he does his little spiel. So it's kind of oddly touching, despite the fact that he completely botched it at first. Then all of a sudden, Christoph starts like flipping shit and he loses his fake accent and he starts talking about, is there somebody named Minnie? So all of a sudden, his like little charming demeanor with the accent turns into like desperate, scared. Oh, I'm being channeled by somebody in this way that's really affecting me physically and mentally. Who's Minnie? Nobody speaks up. Minnie. There's somebody without I see a man with no partner and a wedding ring or something like that. You're like, well, what's going on here? Nobody speaks up. He snaps out of it and like lights start to flicker. So there's this quick, spooky thing that happens with Christo. And that Jack is kind of desperate for ratings. He's going to try to pull something. You don't know if he's involved. You don't know if Christo's faking. You don't know what's happening at this point, but you're getting mixed signals because he was a charlatan. Now he's not. Who knows? Meanwhile, they do this kind of cool storytelling device, which is not the first movie to do this, but it's this thing of like, hey, we're on live TV. So there's the things that are happening on air. And then when we go to commercial break, now we have behind the scenes off air stuff that's happening too.
Mm-hmm.
So they use this device throughout the movie. So the kind of off air, Christou isn't doing good. So you get the idea off the bat that he is genuinely, his nose is bleeding. Like he looks like he's going to fucking die. Like he's in bad shape. But the producer of the show, who's like the classic Hollywood scumbag producer, is pretty enthused about the whole thing.
Yeah.
But Jack is kind of suspect about, like, he's not really sure. You don't know why he's kind of thrown off by the whole thing. You learn pretty soon that Minnie was the a nickname he had for his now dead wife, and he didn't set this up. You don't know at this point if he didn't, but it's like, okay, now you could see why he's a little uneasy about the whole thing too.
Yeah. Yeah, he's uneasy, and then it's interesting because Christou tries his best to not drop his character because he's still trying to do like showman stuff.
Yeah.
He doesn't want anybody to figure out that one instance that just happened was really the only time he's actually channeled somebody. But now that it has happened, like, he can't drop the facade and be like, I never, and then, because it'll just ruin his career. Yeah. So he can't do that in front of a live audience. So, yeah.
Yeah. You know what? That's a good point. I'll tell you, that was, my read of it was a little different, and yours probably makes more sense. But I was like, oh, is he genuinely authentic in what he does? But he's had to, like, dumb it down to this little trick thing, and he really can't control it. But that's what his act is now.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden he got something genuine. But you're saying that you think that was the first time that it ever happened to him. It certainly was in that instance. Like, he seemed to be very much taken off guard by it and thrown for a loop by it. So that makes sense.
Because like you said, he does lose his accent in that instance, because he's definitely putting on a character. They just try to make him ambiguously foreign, because the actor himself who's playing this character is like, he's Lebanese and Syrian, and now he's also adopting like this Spanish accent. So he's just playing ambiguously foreign for the audience.
Right. Right.
But yeah, he loses his accent, and it just like comes out as like a straight American accent, like almost like like just somebody who would be yelling out a window at you. But,
like a just straight New York accent or something.
But the other thing they do later in the film is the Carmichael Haig. You get a little aside of him talking to the two women that Christou has this interaction with about the son who committed suicide. And there's just a little hint in the dialogue explaining that they had already revealed that information to Christou's assistant, who probably relayed it to him. So like that was always going to be kind of the closer for his segment. That was going to wow everyone.
He was already running a racket. That was his racket.
Yeah. Everything else, like when he biffs it with the guy in the audience, he's doing just basic cold reading. And he was just trying to do a cold read, and then the guy who volunteered himself was a fucking nitwit. Like, he was an unknowing nitwit, in that he was like, oh, that's me. Oh, but that's not me. Oh, that's not me either. Uh-oh. What are we doing here?
He's just, it just turns into him doing bits. Yeah. So they go back on air, and they bring out the skeptic, which again, Carmichael Haig, which is the Amazing Randy character, and he's got a $100,000 check to anyone who can prove that this stuff is real. Christou is sitting, they're in the kind of on the couch, if you will, like on set kind of thing, and Christou is not looking good. Ends up like he throws water in Randy's face. Like, it's getting pretty heated. I'm going to just keep calling him Randy. It's not Randy. It's Christou, or not Christou, Carmichael. But things are getting a little heated. Jack says that Minnie, the Minnie reading from Christou was meant for him, right? And then Carmichael immediately suggests like, oh, you know, his cynical, you know, that's very cynical of, you know, bring up your dead wife for ratings kind of thing. But then to everyone's surprise, Christelle starts just barfing up bile, crazy black tar looking shit. And they're like, go to commercial. And so off air, you know, you learn Christelle is not faking. Like, he's fucked up. Like, they call the ambulance. And Randy weirdly knows about Jack's like Grove shit, you know, that he kind of, because he kind of wants to be involved in it too. He's like, put a good word in for me. And he's like, I'm trying to come to these orgies. Like, he literally says about how he wants to come to the orgies and stuff.
I'm trying to bust nuts. Come on.
Yeah. Let me in. So Jack comes back on air with Randy. Again, I'm just keep calling him Randy. And he brings up Dr. June Ross Mitchell, which is the author of this book, Conversations with the Devil, and her subject / patient, whose name is Lily. So they bring him on stage. You get this little like preface to it that they show this clip that where Lily came from, kind of Lily's origin story is she was the daughter of someone named Xander Diabo, who is essentially a mashup between like it's an Anton LaVey type character, right? Very much so. I mean, if it looks like him, but he's in charge instead of the you know, Church of Satan. He's in charge of the First Church of Abraxas.
Yeah, it's a mashup of Anton LaVey and David Koresh. Because
so it's a Heaven's Gate / Waco.
Well, Waco
/ well,
I guess they do kill themselves like Heaven's Gate, but it's just the fact that they show like the house burning, and it's very much like Waco, and then like they had children much the same way like the Branch Davidians did, of like David Koresh was just like, I'm gonna get all of these ladies pregnant, and I'm gonna have all of these children to myself.
So it's like if Anton LaVey was the head of Heaven's Gate, but then they got Waco too. Like that's kind of what happened. Anyway, so it's a mashup of all these real life, you know, kind of characters. And they were all dead. They all died except for Lily. They found his daughter, Lily. And the doctor has been like working with her, but then they also suggest that they eventually come to find out that the doctor is also her legal guardian as well. So it's like she's like her adopted daughter. But Lily is, you get the vibe very much right off the bat that Lily is, you know, the Antichrist. She's kind of dressed like every little, I think she's supposed to be like 12 or 13, but she's dressed like every little girl who's ever been possessed in a possession movie.
Right.
She's got like the long straight hair, like the kind of clothes that look like they belong on a child a lot younger than her. She's very kind of awkward, but weirdly direct. Like she's just playing a very stereotypical demonic child, possessed child type of character, which I kind of wish they wouldn't have done. I'll be honest with you. I understand that they're playing off a lot of like archetypical type of characters from pop culture, but I don't know. It just felt like it was a little on the nose.
Yeah.
Perhaps not.
The fact that there, because there isn't a twist at the end to her character, like she just is possessed the entire time. Yeah. So, that's why it just feels like, all right, I guess. Because, like, there isn't a twist to it. It's like she is a weird girl the entire time, just like all the other weird girls who are possessed by the devil. And you go, all right. Sure, go on. You were, so, I mean, there's a couple little kind of twisty things, but not really. I really was expecting one big twist to happen. And, you know, listen, I don't think we need to give spoiler alerts. We're talking about the plot in depth, but we are going to spoil the hell out of this. So Lily, like I said, is weird right from the beginning, and she keeps like
first of all, just staring right down the barrel of the camera, which is creepy.
Yeah.
But if she's like a little girl, she might think to do that, right? Or she might not know not to do that. But then she's also getting weird, really weird with Jack, like kind of weirdly possessive and like almost flirtatious, which is kind of creepy. Mm-hmm. They go off air, and the doc really doesn't like the idea of Lily being on air. But Jack is kind of pressuring it because he's like, this is the ratings and blah, blah, blah. The doc says that Lily has been talking about Jack in the days like leading up to their appearance on the show, which is a little concerning because obviously they've never met before. There was a weird thing that I don't know. I would maybe have to go back and watch again to like fully understand, but I got the feeling that there definitely was not that I got the feeling there definitely was some like sexual tension between Jack and the doctor, mm-hmm. right? Some romantic interaction, stuff like that. That was not, like I said, you're very much meant to know that. Did you get the feeling that there was just interest there, or they already had like a romantic sexual relationship before they came on the show?
I think they already had, and I think it's just like a real small move in mm-hmm. this, in one of the commercial breaks. I forget which one it happens in, if it's before or after mm-hmm. the actual channeling, but there's a scene where June and Jack are talking to each other, and just the way like she kind of relents to him badgering her about continuing with putting Lily on. Yeah. And like he just does a slight move of he moves in and just like puts his forehead against hers, which is like a very intimate thing that you wouldn't do with somebody that you just like hadn't had that kind of connection with yet. So
yes. Yeah. I didn't remember the exact moment, but there was a moment where I was like, wait, are they already a couple?
Yeah.
Because up till this point, it just kind of suggested that maybe there was like some flirtatiousness. But yeah, you're right. That's got to allude to the fact that they were already a couple. But right after this little instance that you just mentioned, where he's kind of again pressuring the doc into keeping Lily on the show and everything, they get the word that Christo, or specifically the producer, tells Jack that Christo is dead. He died on the way to the hospital. And he's like, what the fuck? So now all of a sudden everything is pretty wild. By the way, we talked about his character quite a bit, but I think the character that stole the show here is the Carmichael. Is it Haig? Yeah. Isn't it Carmichael Haig? Yeah, Carmichael Haig character, which he refers to him as Carr for short, aka the Randy character, is great. I think he steals the show.
He's great. And
he's cartoonish as fuck, but
he's cartoonish, but also like I really feel like the writers and directors were just like huge James Randi fans, because there's a detail in there that is just like it's so funny and silly to put in, but like when he's first getting interviewed by Jack, they're talking about his fucking society or whatever for skeptics. Mm-hmm. And it has like that crazy long acronym to it. Yeah. It's like ISIP or it's like ICOSIP or some shit like that.
Mm-hmm.
But that also, the real James Randi had a committee that was fucking this long dumbass acronym that was called PsyCop, which was the Committee for Scientific Investigation of Claims of the Paranormal. Like the just big long dumb. So like that's such a deep, detailed thing to know about, the character, aside.
Yeah.
That, it's funny.
This is a James Randi biopic, essentially, right. what it boils down to. He just, the character steals the show. He's a little bit more extreme. James Randi had this air about him where he was a little bit of just like a militant know-it-all nerd mm-hmm. in real life, in an endearing, like he was in an endearing way. Like he really, you felt that he was always one step ahead of all the people, that were kind of challenging him. But this guy is very like flamboyant and theatrical, which is not what Randy was like. No, it was like,
no, this guy obviously is trying to be a star, whereas Randy was just trying to destroy fucking charlatans.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's not a 1-to-1, but it is interesting that there's so much like backstory of the real James Randi baked into it. Lily explains that the quote unquote demon or whatever the entity is that lives inside her is named Mr. Wriggles, which is of course a very much a callback to The Exorcist and Captain Howdy, which is, what Reagan calls Pazuzu or whatever the demon that's inside her, which I was like, okay, one, like it's such a direct 1-to-1 reference to such a famous movie that I thought was a little heavy handed. But the other thing is, I call him Mr. Wriggles. Now I couldn't stop thinking of Rob Riggle. Every time she said that, I could not stop thinking of comic actor and comedian Rob Riggle. So she explains, what Mr. Wriggles is, and shit starts going wild. The theremin starts going wild. Shit's exploding. Randy is like, "Hey, you it's the electrical stuff, right? Am I right?" And they just kind of explains that away. Jack suggests that they should summon Mr. Wriggles, and the doc is not enthused and feels like she was very much like set up on air because he knew she was not going to be comfortable doing this, but he put her on the spot on air, which she's pretty pissed off about. She feels like she was kind of ambushed. So when they get off air, they immediately start butting heads about this, and you start to see that Jack is becoming like increasingly desperate.
Yeah.
To make a big splash on this episode. And then we haven't mentioned him yet, but the kind of sidekick / band leader of Jack, his name's Gus, and he's kind of an Ed Sullivan / Andy Richter /
You mean Ed McMahon?
Yes, I'm sorry, Ed McMahon, not Ed Sullivan.
Yeah.
Ed Sullivan was another host from even before that, before Johnny Carson. And Andy Richter, or not Andy Richter. What was the guy?
Andy Richter, Kevin Eubanks.
Yeah, but I was trying to think of Max from Conan. He's the band
Max Weinberg.
Max Weinberg. I can't want to say Max Weinstein, and I know that's not right. But yeah, Max Weinberg kind of thing. So Gus is getting scared, and he knows about Christo, dying on the way to the hospital, and he's kind of starting to suggest that maybe they're like, we got to jump ship. Like he's kind of suggesting mutiny a little bit to Jack, like, which seems a little hasty, but he knows Christo died. But he's also just like, the whole thing is like, hey, this is giving me the heebie-jeebies, basically. So they get back on air. And you get this demonstration of the doc talking to Mr. Wriggles, and the demon inside of Lily starts talking in her demon voice. She's just doing all the stereotypical possessed child things, flipping around, making weird voices, and the face starts to kind of transform. And he explains, the demon, Mr. Wriggles, explains that he knows Jack, like he's there for Jack. That's kind of what the suggestion is. And he mentions that he remembers him from the Grove, and just starts saying wild shit about Jack and the doc, like fucking each other, and just wild shit about his dead wife. And like, he's basically manifesting the wife is mad because he's fucking the doc or wants to or whatever, and just being a mean old demon basically to Jack through Lily. So you learn that Jack is kind of the focus of the hostility in a lot of ways. And Lily keeps saying this, like, even after the demonstration, keeps saying this like cryptic shit to Jack about his wife, and then the chair levitates, which is obviously everyone's kind of freaking out a little bit, and starts doing electricity shit. Fucking bulbs are popping and just basic demon shit. But the audience is now all of a sudden like, oh, what the fuck? That was wild. But Jack's loving it. So they go off air and Jack's like, hell yeah, this is amazing. This is like, our ratings are going to be through the fucking roof. And Doc starts questioning Jack about the Grove, the things happening at the Grove, of which he just kind of is like, I don't know what you're talking about. One other thing I wanted to say about when Gus is like, we got to stop, this is fucked up. And Gus goes over Jack's head, goes to the producer. And maybe my favorite quote of the movie, the scumbag producer, after Gus is like, well, this is fucked up, blah, blah, blah. He goes, listen to me, you goddamn shit your pants Mick asshole.
Yeah. It's so brutal of just getting him back in line and then browbeating him. Because the guy playing Gus, he's kind of a diminutive fellow. Like he's just like happy-go-lucky sidekick, always smiling. Yeah,
little short guy,
nervous.
Yeah.
And so like he goes up to.
It reminds me of Henry Zabrowski a little bit.
A little bit, yeah. If Henry was bald, so yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And black hair and not instead of red hair, but yes,
right.
he has similar mannerisms of a lot of characters Henry Zabrowski.
Maybe it's Henry's dad. I don't know, but
I don't think he's that old.
But yeah, he goes up to the producer. The producer just runs him down, and then like when he's telling him to put his smile back on and get his energy up is also another just great like.
He's like wider. He's making him smile more.
Yeah. Just another great interaction of just like how much it's very obviously Jack and this producer Leo's show, just the two of them.
Yes.
And then like they're both in league with like the studio exec Bergman. And so I assume all three of them are members of the Grove. Like I don't think they ever say Leo is part of it, but I assume he's a part of it.
Yeah, they never say the producer is. I got the feeling he's just a shitbag producer type.
Could be too.
And maybe he is.
Yeah.
But the head, you definitely get the feeling that the reason that Jack got this opportunity is because the head of the network is a member of the Grove and pulled Jack in.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why he's getting this opportunity.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, they're all in league, and everybody else can go fuck themselves in favor of ratings, and that's all they need.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but that quote: "Listen to me, you goddamn shit your pants Mick asshole." Shit your pants Mick asshole. This is just such a funny, harsh insult. Anyway, so Gus tells Carmichael that Christo died, and now Carmichael's like, "What the fuck? Shit's getting kind of real here." They start to get news that the ratings are coming, like the early reports of the ratings are huge, and Jack's super excited, but he heard his dead wife's voice come out of Lily's mouth during the demonstration.
Mm-hmm.
So he's kind of freaking out, but he's also like, the thing that I've been trying to do is happening now. And the producer's like, yeah, you're going to be the fucking cock of the walk, bro. And he's like, they're ripping shots, and they're just, everything is happening the way he wants it to, but he's like, wait, something's not right here, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
So they get back on air, and now they have Lily and the doc, kind of up on the couch, right? And Lily is okay now, from what we can tell. And Randy, but Carmichael is trying to explain all this away and how this all happens. And the doc's getting pissed because she's like, no, I live this, like I've treated her, fuck you. And the doc explains, that also she's her guardian as well, and she cares about her, and all that sort of stuff. So she's getting pretty agitated. But this was kind of a fun scene, right? Because Carmichael does this whole demonstration with Gus to prove how that thing that looked so believable was real. And this is probably the weirdest turn that the movie takes that this is my favorite part.
Yeah.
I think it's probably most people's favorite part of the movie.
Probably.
So Carmichael sits in a chair across from Gus and hypnotizes him in the very classic, look at my pocket watch. And then all of a sudden there's a little spiral kind of spinning, hypnotizing design on it. Right. And he's hypnotizing, he's hypnotizing Gus, but he's also hypnotizing the entire audience. Then there's like this flash, and he explains that Gus has this phobia of worms. And Gus, starts to pick at his neck. There's like a spot that's bleeding on his neck, and all of a sudden worms are coming out of his neck, and then they're coming out of like his body, and he like rips open a hole in his guts, and just all these worms coming out, and you don't really know if this is real or not. And it's pretty well done because then Carmichael tries to like snap him out of it, but he's like unsuccessful in snapping him out of it. And he's like, what the fuck? And then, you know, his eyes explode into worms and all this shit. And then all this. So you're like, oh my God, is Mr. Wriggles doing this? Or is, you know, just to fuck with everyone and Carmichael? Or is this Carmichael having actually hypnotized people? Well, then Gus does snap out of it along with everyone else. And you realize that virtually everyone in the audience saw this crazy thing that happened with the worms.
Yeah.
And then this was a pretty interesting. Oh, go ahead. Before we get any further. What'd you think about that scene? I didn't know what to. I was genuinely intrigued, uncertain what was happening at that point, and I was like, okay, this is when shit's gonna completely hit the fan and go sideways.
Yeah, I liked. It's a good setup to bait you in further that you believe it, because while they're doing the hypno stuff, at one point Carmichael looks at the camera and winks.
Yes.
So, like, that's, I mean, it's supposed to be for the people at home, but it's for us. It's for us, the audience, not the audience that's there. And so we see him wink and we go, oh, he's up to something. Ha ha ha.
Yeah.
But then when he can't snap Gus out, and it changes from a bunch of worms in Gus's stomach to a giant demon worm busting through busting through his eye. And so, like, that's a turn for us that, like, now we're bought in. But then he snaps Gus out of that. And, like, again, kind of winks at the camera. And we go, he got us. Like, we got.
Yeah.
Everybody got. We got.
Right. But then there's like this weird. So I like this, but then it loses me and also kind of gets me confused as well here in a second. Basically, Randy says, aka Carmichael, hey, I hypnotized the audience. I hypnotized everyone on set. I hypnotized Gus, and you all saw what Gus was experiencing because of that, as did likely people at home. So they play back the tape, and you see that Randy was just suggesting all the things that were happening to Gus, the worms coming out of his neck and then out of his belly. And you see on the playback that Randy was just saying all that.
Right.
Okay. Which is kind of cool because you're like, oh, wow, no, he did. That was decisively proof that everyone or most people in the audience, with the exception of just a few, people at home and people on set and all this stuff could all be simultaneously hypnotized to see these things. And then, okay, this is what confused me because us, not the studio audience or the audience at home during that time, but why is the tape that we as the audience are supposedly watching as a found footage thing,
right,
show the worms?
Yeah.
Which of the tapes was real? Which is the tapes actually filmed what happened? You know what I mean? Like, because you know what I mean?
I know what you're saying.
It kind of gets lost in an inception level of which tape is real and which tape is showing the hypnotized version. And yeah. So
I think this is just a case of like, there's a couple other like found footage films like this that just break down after they've established something. They just break down this way because, like, in reality, we never should have seen the worms ever. It should have always been like mass hypnosis. But also, at this point, we've already been bought into the commercial break storytelling device of switching to black and white handheld camera, and you also get split screen in those instances.
That's true too. I didn't think about the split screen.
Like, are we supposed to believe that there are two people running around with 16 millimeter black and whites filming
behind the scenes stuff, and simultaneously, and then edit it together, and then they found that tape,
right? Yeah, and the audio is super fucking good as well. So like, like we're at this point we're all just kind of bought into the fact that we're dropping the found footage part of this because after this we get stuff that's completely unfilmable.
Correct, right, and the film and the fact that like when shit really hits the fan, everyone's gone except for the camera person is still doing zooms and pans,
right?
And shit.
Yeah.
So which I'm okay. Like that's an inherent thing with a lot of found footage, more out of the box found footage stuff. It just in this instance it felt particularly not even egregious, but just particularly evident because a key part of the plot had to do with rewinding a tape live on the air, and we're watching a tape of 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 a tape, kind of thing.
It's at this point they already technically have us bought into the film, so we'll just let it go, and you kind of forget the found footage setup of it, but also it is wrong. So
Yeah. At this point, you're so far into the found footage thing. You're just in there. You're part of the ride. You might as well be an audience member. But
right.
Anyway, so the doc insists she did not hypnotize them, and Lily suggests, okay, well then go back to the tape of Mr. Wriggles. Let's go back and watch that tape, because if she was hypnotizing, then we would be able to see that none of that actually happened on that tape. Well, the tape shows that it was not hypnotism. And to make matters worse for old Jack, he sees a flash of a dang old ghost of his dead wife on the screen. Yeah. And you slow it down just in one frame. So Jack's, freaking out a little bit at this point. So the demon... we'll wait and figure out like motivations and stuff, because it is a little bit vague. At this point, Lily just goes bananas on everyone, sucks the electricity out of the fucking station with her hands, and then she's like simultaneously sucking it out of the TV, but then she almost looks like she's like a conduit to another like source of electricity. Ultimately, her head splits open down the middle, which is a pretty wild image. Yeah. But, it's CGI. Cool. But, yeah, it looks cool. And then just starts killing people very unceremoniously. Like, Gus comes up and is like, no. And she just spins Gus's head around, which, of course, was a reference to a thing Gus said earlier about like, hey, don't spin my head around. My wife likes it this direction. Some corny joke he said earlier.
Yeah. But
then the doc comes up.
I like the pratfall he takes through the fucking table after he gets his head spun around.
He picks him up off the ground. He's like levitating, spins his head backwards, and then he just smashes through the fucking like coffee table in front of them. The doc, she's very unceremoniously killed. You knew Gus was going to get it the whole time, right? You already saw worms come out of Gus's belly. Yeah. So, but then the doc's like, no, this is not cool. And Lily just like basically opens up her throat and just blood sprays everywhere.
Yeah. I'm not on board. I'm not on board.
Yeah.
Because
with the doc or just with this whole scene?
Well, I mean, kind of with this scene, because... Yeah. Or at least this part of the scene. So earlier in the film, we're shown that the doc has some fucking amulet. We don't and it's never really explained the origins of it. Like what?
Nope.
But apparently the amulet holds power over the demon to make it go away.
Well, not just that, but I mean, there's all types. There's like it makes it not stand out even more. I mean, I didn't even mention it, obviously, but it makes it not stand out even more because there are other, like, mystical objects on the table. There's, like, a dagger, you know what I mean? Yeah. There's, like, a bunch of shit. So you just kind of think, like, oh, those are just, like, mystical, occult accoutrements on the table.
Yeah. And we're supposed to assume it's a bunch of stuff that was collected from the Diabo, cult compound. But...
Right.
like not like it's never explained what this talisman is that she uses, and we never get a good look at it either. So if we wanted to do research later to try and find it, you can't. So, but yeah, and then she just gets picked up by it, and it gets ripped through her throat. And I'm like, I'm just not on board. Like, what was the point of the talisman? Like, why? I don't get it. Yeah. Bleh.
I mean, so much so that honestly, I didn't even realize that was what happened to her throat. I was just thinking he just fucking opened up her throat. Yeah. But yeah, you're right. It was the thing around her neck. The best kill is Carmichael, because he's like all of a sudden like, oh shit, you're the devil. The devil rules. Take me with you. Like he's like basically like offers himself up. Like, hey, no, I want to serve you. And then she just incinerates him. Yeah. Just completely incinerates just turns him into fucking fire.
Well, she incinerates the check first, because he tries to pay the devil, half $500,000, and then
right.
Again, this is where I'm off board though. I'm on board, but I'm off board, and I'm off board because I did bonus study. And so I did study, I did homework into the demon Abraxas, because when she burns the check, she says abracadabra. And we're told that Abraxas is like the origin, like the origins of the word abracadabra. So she says it and burns the check and then burns Carmichael. Looking into this demon, it's not really a demon. Like it's not the same way like Hereditary had a good demon in Paimon and they did good research.
Yeah.
They didn't do good research in Abraxas.
Well, I didn't even assume it was a real thing. I was just like, oh, Abraxas is like the name of one of those fucking acid fucking ATV monsters in Mandy. Wasn't that like Abraxas or something?
Yeah, I think so. Could have been, yeah.
Something like that, anyway.
I mean, Abraxas is also the name of a Jesse Ventura Space Odyssey. It's back like when Jesse Ventura is playing a space bounty hunter, and I'm Abraxas, the space bounty hunter.
Oh, hell yeah. I would watch that.
But like the actual,
let me guess, he takes his shirt off at some point.
Yeah, he takes his shirt off and he's bald.
Yeah.
The actual demon wasn't really a demon. It was actually like a Christian god for a long amount of time. And like the real early beginnings of Christianity, it was like he was like the god of a bunch of heavens, and then the Catholics said no, we have one God.
Yeah, he's one of those cool early creator gods.
Yeah,
and then gotcha.
And the Catholics said no, we have one, and then now he's a demon. This one's a demon. No.
No, we have one, but we also kind of have three, right? But then we also worship the mom too, so it's kind of like four. Anyway, that's the demon that's all of a sudden just unleashing shit here, right? Is Abraxas. Everyone else fucking bails, just fucks off out of the station, and the demon is just kind of just running amok here, and then you cut back to the show opening weirdly, right? And all of a sudden, like Jack like kind of escapes out side stage. Maybe you don't really know. You just see this like door kind of close, and you cut back to the show's opening, and Jack is coming on stage. As they're like, hey, welcome your guests, blah, blah, blah. And he walks out, think Jimmy Fallon or Conan or somebody comes out, do the little monologue. So we're back to that. But Jack comes on stage and he's all like disoriented and they don't know where he is and all this stuff. And it's Gus is there. Gus is acting weird. The audience is acting weird. And all of a sudden, Jack is just, it's like, wait, hey, where am I? This is not reality. I already saw all these things happen, whatever. So Jack is kind of reliving some of the nonsense from the show, like certain sketches they did, stuff that we saw at the beginning. We're seeing him relive now, but he's checked out, and just generally shit is kind of wild at this point. So like, there's a scene where there's a fucking giant worm, you know what I mean? Where of course in real life there wasn't. There's a scene where, his wife that was dying of cancer is kind of like, taunting him now where she wasn't before. So again, this is this kind of like alternate reality of these things that he's already experienced in the show. So you start to get the idea that Jack is in some sort of like maybe continual, purgatory looping type situation. And this part is weird. I don't hate it, but I have mixed feelings about it. It turns into this kind of like weird, like Scrooge's Reckoning in like some of the weirder versions of A Christmas Carol, where he's kind of like learning what he did wrong, and he's kind of being confronted by his mistakes in the past. So it's almost like this Ghost of Christmas Future mixed with his past type of thing. I don't know, because up until this point, you haven't really seen, aside from Jack being desperate to save the show, and perhaps Jack, dating a new woman, presumably a year after his wife passed away. You haven't, that Jack has some weird occult history with the Grove, but you haven't seen him like be a bastard. Really.
No.
Like he hasn't done anything where you're like, oh, Jack's getting his comeuppance now. Yeah.
He's never really that bad to deserve what is going on at this point. And this is where it's just like, it's so kind of muddy as to what is actually happening, because we're told about the demon Abraxas, but also supposedly his wife is sort of possessing or reaching out to Lily, but also,
or is that just the demon fucking with him?
Right. Is that just the demon fucking with him? And then in these scenes, we're shown Diabo is a part of the cult, maybe, because it's hard to actually confirm that when we're in this weird dream-like sequence.
Yeah.
Like, are we supposed to take it at face value that Diabo is also at the Grove and inducted him into it? Or is it just part of the demon fucking with him? Because there's so much that is, again, it's all dreamlike, and there's so much that's off. We're reshown his contract signing with Bergman, and Bergman is like, yes, he's going to sacrifice much more, and gives him a chalice to drink out of. Like, it's cool because this whole scene is like a moving stage play. Like there's like the background is moving behind him and stuff. It's cool, and it's filmed in a way that's completely separate from the other ways we've seen things filmed. Because at this point we've seen like 70s TV studio filming, and the handheld 16 millimeter faux 16 millimeter stuff. And now this is like wide angle lens that's always, the camera's always canted in a way or spinning, and the shadows are really harsh. It feels very Are You Afraid of the Dark all of a sudden when shit hits this fan and it's like, zoom in on a kid screaming kind of thing. So here's the part that confused me the most is in this like weird fugue state dream, whatever's happening, Jack is confronted by, this cult guy in an owl mask. So of course he's from the Grove, right? He's signifying in the, that, and it suggests that he did some sort of ritual with a demon or the devil or some sort of occult ritual at the Grove to garner his show business success, right? Right.
Which, of course, classic mistake. But the question now becomes, like you said, where does Diabo come in? Was he either part of that organization? Is it just that all occultists are are linked in some capacity, or just was his daughter the vessel to bring coincidentally the same demon back that Jack made a deal with at the Grove?
Yeah.
Like, are all demons just one big demon, or is it,
are all demons one big demon? Do all demons know each other?
Yeah.
And
that sounds racist.
I know, right?
Yeah.
But like, that's the other thing I'm getting hung up on, is because Diabo is associated with Abraxas, fine. But anybody who knows the Grove knows that it's Moloch the Owl. And they even show the owl mask. So we all know it's Moloch that's in charge of the Grove. I've been to the Grove. Also, I've seen it. I've seen them worship Moloch and sacrifice people to it.
I've watched them eat babies and making the frogs gay. Yeah. So here's the other big question mark is, was this he did this ritual and the devil is it's a Luca Brasi situation where he's like, at some point I'm going to come to you with a favor, or is it like, I'm giving you my soul, or what? Because of course demons, you make a deal with the demon or the devil or whoever, it's not going to play out the way you think it's going to play out. Like classic trope, right? Yeah. He's dang old trickster. But they also kind of suggest that maybe one of two things is the case. Either part of the deal that he made was, we're going to take something from you, and the thing they decided to take was his wife.
Mm-hmm.
Or did he offer up his wife?
Yeah.
Because there seems to, it's never clear, but it could be either way, I feel like.
Yeah. And
because,
these demon deals is so tricky. But I know what you're saying.
That's how they get you.
I know what you're saying. It is one or the other, that either they you sign the contract and we'll take something from you. You don't know what, or maybe he offered his wife.
Well, he does stab her. And so we get to this climactic scene where in front of the whole studio audience and everything, he's basically at his wife's deathbed. Right. And she's got no hair, assumedly from chemotherapy. She's got no hair. She looks very ill. She's on a respirator, all this stuff. And he stabs her with a ceremonial dagger. So did he give up her life, or was it one of those things where she was dying already and he gave up her life because he's she ain't got that much life left? Or did he already offer her? Did he make the deal before she got cancer, after she got cancer? Did he not know that he was technically giving her up? You don't really know what he knew or what he did on purpose or didn't do on purpose. But the stabbing of his wife with the ceremonial blade is the thing that suggested to me that he willingly gave up his wife's life for his success on the show, either after or before he knew she was dying.
Yeah. I would go along with that, because earlier in the film, they talk about how she made this appearance on the show when she was sick and dying. And they made it very abundantly clear that show was, at the time, his highest rated show, but still not better than Carson.
Right.
So 2 weeks later, as she's dying, it's very possible that he offered her up. He just offered her life up to, in the future, get a show that is the legitimate number one, highest rated.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause that's ultimately what he wants. And the reason that I think that he did offer her up knowingly is because that is why she's so pissed. Right. Because she is bombed.
Yeah.
There is no hey, I'm trying to communicate with you beyond the grave. It's we're trying to get revenge on your ass. You are being dealt with in some capacity. Anyway, he snaps out of his weird spell and he sees that he has stabbed Lily, on the set. Everyone else is dead. So he stabbed Lily, he was stabbing his wife with a ceremonial dagger in his weird dream or whatever. Now he comes to and sees that he has stabbed Lily. He's on the set and everyone else is dead, but the cameras are still rolling. And then he's like trying to wake himself up because he thinks that maybe he has been hypnotized.
Yeah.
So he's trying to wake himself up and, no dice, obviously. And then the video cuts and that's the end.
Yeah. Yeah.
So vague ending, which I have no issue with. It just also, I think the word you used earlier was muddy, which I would tend to agree with.
Yeah. It's muddy and you're just not given like a real solid thing to hold on to at the end. It's obviously implied that like when he's going through that whole ordeal, he's under some sort of hypnosis at that point because you see the hypnosis wheels come back as part of like different set dressings and things like that. So it's an implication that he's hypnotized during, this fugue state. And then after he stabs Lily, he's obviously back in the real world and wants to, like wake himself up. I wish there was just maybe like one little thing for us to like really grasp at the end, like some sort of report about like that was his number one show and it beat Carson. Like that's the punchline is like, with that show, he beat Carson, but then had to go to fucking jail and like was executed and all that. Like, so he got what he wished for, but the monkey paw curls. And it's because he killed a whole bunch of people on set and,
Yeah. I mean, I think that's all implied, obviously. So I don't know if I need him to say that or I need the movie to say that. But I do wish it was they set him up to get his comeuppance a little bit more because I mean, I guess they did communicate that like he did something wrong in that he offered up his wife in some capacity, but it still felt pretty vague. Yeah. The reliving it, like I said, it felt a little Dickensian, the reliving what he did wrong and all that stuff.
Right.
Just in a dream. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
What's a dream? What's not a dream? That trope when it comes to like I said, it just felt very Christmas Carol-y to me, which is not a bad thing. It just, I don't know, didn't seem that new or different or unique. I think the thing that really grabbed a lot of people about this movie is the aesthetic.
Oh, for sure.
Is done, pretty well. And also it's just an attractive, nostalgic aesthetic, the great kind of mid-late 70s feel. Like I think they nailed that pretty well. It definitely gave you that, Paul Lynde Halloween special vibes I talked about. And you know what? Love it or hate it, I think the on-air, off-air kind of storytelling mechanic worked pretty well worked to this advantage, even though it was tricky with the whole found footage thing. I think they pulled it off decently well.
Yeah. I mean, I liked it, even though it does, break that, first supposition of like we're watching found footage. I liked it. Like I think it's a neat way to tell what's going on air and what's going off air. But yeah, I liked a lot of parts about this, and I think people should watch it. It's fun, but yeah, I think it's just that last kind of 10-15 minutes aren't what I was hoping for, and it just gets too muddy, and it feels like there wasn't enough research done on like the demons and the demonology and just what they were trying to put forth. Like you can kind of you're essentially interpreting somebody's dream to get what the ending is. And I don't always love that, Obviously when you watch David Lynch, you're interpreting a dream because he's just interpreting his own dreams onto fucking film. And you should expect that with David Lynch. But when this film is set up as a found footage and 80% of it is presented as, a documentary style type thing, to switch to this off the wall dream sequence at the end and tell the audience, you fucking figure it out.
Yeah.
It's just kind of like
the dream sequence. You're watching the found footage of a guy's dream.
Yeah.
Have fun. Like, where's the host? Was this documentary never finished? You know, what happened? I don't know. Yeah. So it did kind of just give up at the end. And I think that combined with like some of the mixed up storytelling combined with, I mean, listen, the AI stuff, the whole thing felt a little slapped together and cheap. Which is not a bad thing. Some of my favorite movies are slapped together and cheap. I just think the expectations for me, with all the hype around this movie, people thought it was going to be really great. And I think it was pretty okay.
Yeah.
I think that there was, what was that exorcism movie that came out a couple of years ago about, the like weird online preacher or some shit where they do like a live exorcism streaming online.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. It's like, I think it might just be called The Last, is it just called The Last Streaming? No.
Maybe.
No.
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking of The Last Stream on the Left. Which is the
oh yeah.
No, that's not it.
No, I can't remember it. I'll think.
It's also on Shudder too, I believe. But
I think it was maybe even a Shudder exclusive or Shudder original when it came out a few years ago. I'm sure people are screaming at their phones right now. It's called this, but that honestly was better. It was a better how to do this.
Yeah.
Because you cared a little bit more about the characters. They were good guys and bad guys. Like this, you didn't really care that much about anyone. The wife, you didn't see enough of her to care about her. Maybe the doc you cared a little bit about, but you didn't know enough about her backstory. Jack, you cared about him a little bit, but also you're kind of like, I mean, he's a weird like entertainment industry like elitist scumbag, like also who fucking cares about him either. So you didn't really care about anyone in the movie. If you want a demonstration of how to make you really care about characters in a relatively short amount of time in a fucking tight movie, go watch Talk to Me, because that's a much better example of how to do that. Because you really care about the characters, and it's not 2 hours and 10 minutes long. Not that this was either. This was a tight movie, but Talk to Me was also a pretty tight movie.
I was like, for some reason, I thought Talk to Me was a longer movie. I don't know why. Like not in a bad way.
I think it was like an hour.
Yeah.
No, I thought it was like an hour 40. I just watched it last night. I don't think I would have put it on if it was 2 hours long.
It is really good though. I do enjoy that movie.
Yeah.
So. Yeah. It's fine, and I think that's why it wound up on Shudder as quick as it did. It's not the most amazing horror film, but there's a lot of good elements to it. So like, I think a lot of people will enjoy it on a first watch. Probably isn't going to wind up in your favorite films of all time, but yeah.
I think it'll get a lot of replay value for people because of the spooky Halloween aesthetic.
Yeah.
Which is fun. Although, like I said, it may or may not age well because of the AI stuff. But in any case, there was a couple things even in the trailer that I'm looking at and I'm like, that is pretty AI too. Because I'm just rewatching the trailer in the background here on the IMDb page right now. Anyway, guys, that's Late Night with the Devil from 2023, currently streaming on Shudder. Go check it out. There's actually a lot of good stuff on there. Well, there always is, but there's some new good stuff that's just popped up pretty recently as well. Any final thoughts, Steve, on this here movie flick?
I mean, not on the movie itself, but just to quickly correct two things that we've been dumb about.
Only two?
Yeah, only two. It's Critters 4 that's in space. Critters 3 is the one that is Leonardo DiCaprio's first film. That's the distinction on that one. The other dumb thing is
is that the Easter movie
that's
too?
Critters 2 is the
2 is the Easter.
Yeah, 2 is the Easter one. And then the other dumb thing is The movie is The Cleansing Hour.
The Cleansing Hour. That's a fun one. That's a fun one. I think also a lot of it was I went in with no expectations, really liked it. Then this one I went in with high expectations and thought it was okay. So that's Anywho,
thought it was okie dokie.
It was just fine. You should watch it. I'm not saying you should spend $1 million to watch it, but if you got a Shudder subscription already, go check it out. Remember, next week we will be discussing what our showdown movies for space horror in the month of May are going to be. I'm excited to learn what our other guest is. I wonder if this will be because, you know, we have a Steve and then we've got a premium Steve. Everyone knows this is long time, fans of the show. No, we do have an occasional premium Steve as a guest. I wonder if this will become a premium Brian situation where I will become below premium Brian. And then of course the premium Brian will be a guest. Very likely.
You can be subprime Brian.
Subprime Brian. That has a ring to it. I kind of like it. All right. Join us next week as we discuss what those showdown movies are going to be. So you got some time to watch them if you want to before that showdown episode. Anything else I'm forgetting?
No, that's it.
All right, boys and ghouls. Thanks for joining us once again for the Halloween's Forever crew. I'm Brian.
And I'm Steve.
All right. My last week is the only Brian. I'll enjoy it. I'll try. Bye.
Bye.
Fuck off.